Hello, everyone. Welcome to Cougar Dash. I am Ryan Root, joined by my co-host Cody Schoeler. And Cody, we can at least start off our show with a bang, as the Cougars have finally ended their 6-game losing streak against none other than the UW Huskies. So let's talk about this game at least a little bit. We have to take advantage of the high points recently, especially in 2021. This is only our second win of the new year. So what are your brief thoughts on the game? What did you think?
So to be honest, didn't get to watch a lot of it. I was traveling at the time, but which it sucks, but I knew what was going to happen. I knew this was going to be a win. Just to put it bluntly, the Huskies they suck this year. We even saw it last year when both teams were pretty good. WSU was able to beat them, so I think the tide is turning a little bit in state, and I think WSU. Maybe is emerging as the team out of those two. Obviously, there's another team in Washington that might be a bit above these two. But it's always good to see a win. Of course, it is. But yeah, I expected this the whole time. WSU's been playing not the best, but they still have a lot more potential, and they've still been playing better than a UW team that has looked. For a second, I might have been scared. They've been hot lately, but if you look at their wins or the games that they played well, it was just abysmal efforts by the other team. Colorado couldn't hit anything to save their life, and they still almost won. So, this wasn't the game, that maybe some were expecting, maybe a close game based on the way the teams were playing, but if there's ever a time to break this skid, I think this was what they needed. Not only was it a win over their rival, but it was a win in general. So I think that was big. So I want to know what you kind of saw. More. You got to watch it. You have the in-depth analysis. So let me know what you think.
Yeah, of course, I got to cover the game, doing the live tweets and whatnot. You can, of course, keep up with those during any WSU basketball game. I'll be live tweeting fairly often during any game, as well as tonight, which we will preview later on in the show. But as far as us taking down the Huskies this past Sunday, I was not too scared of the Huskies upsetting the Cougars. I thought this was going to be, if you saw from last week, I thought this was going to be a fairly close game, single-digit battle, multiple lead changes throughout the whole entire game. It kind of felt like that in the first maybe 10 minutes of the game, and then the Cougs just started going. But FA had a great first half against the Huskies, which I was not entirely expecting, because I also thought Nate Roberts from the Huskies, who is a big, 6'11", 260-pound center on this team, I thought FA was going to get shoved around and it was going to all get pushed towards Deshaun. But FA had a huge half, and then the second half, Bonton Williams and Deshaun joined them. The starters combined for 70 points, as the bench had 7 points. So, with some pros, there are some cons with the win. I would have loved to see some more bench scoring from this team, but a win is a win is a win is a win, right? But something definitely stood out to me in terms of Bonton just turning it up in the second half. Just, I don't know. He just has that ability, right? He has this ability to put up shots that you have to scratch your head and be like, I don't know what his thought process is of seeing that open look, but it's there. It's open. He makes them. The second half is what really stood out for me in this game. Everyone started clicking. It's one of the best defensive performances I think we've seen as of late, especially in conference play, I'll say. But Noah Williams, I said it in last week's show, Noah Williams did not want to lose this game, and that's exactly what we saw from him in the post-game, pre-game, during the game. He got 2 technicals for just trash talking. That's probably the most entertaining part of the game. But what do you think of Williams' his tenacity when playing these Huskies teams? He's now 3-0 against his Seattle native university.
Yeah, you have to love it. He's a guy from last year as a freshman that just had that, that swagger, that just ability about him. He could, play to the crowd, play off the crowd. He thrives in those big moments. So, it's a little weird without the fans. I'm sure he would have loved to do it again and beat them in front of a packed house like he did last year. But I mean, for as long as he stays around, I mean, he is going to play his best games against the Huskies. I don't know what. I mean, I'm sure he'll turn it up in any big moment, whether it's Pac-12 tournament or beyond. But I mean, every time he plays the Huskies, he has that chip on his shoulder of just wanting to beat, a lot of guys that he grew up playing against or playing with in AAU, with a lot of guys from that Seattle area. So, that's what he's going to do. He's going to turn it on in those moments, and that's what you want to see from one of your best players and a guy who has emerged as an offensive weapon. So, I think you can always count on a big game from him against the Huskies. And, just that type of swagger that he has and just how badly, he I don't know about all the players, but he embodies what I think fans feel. WSU fans want nothing more than to beat UW at whatever it is. I don't always think UW reciprocates that, maybe because they win a lot or whatever, but I know that myself and, Cougar fans hate the Huskies, and he does too. A lot of these guys, F.A. Abagides from all over the world, Africa, Australia, he doesn't have that same hate, but Noah Williams does. So, I think that is just what makes him so much of a fan favorite, is that he feels fans feel, and he doesn't want to lose to that team. And, that's something that other players learned, but he's had it from the get-go, and I think that's just amazing to watch.
Well, Noah Williams is doing something that the Mike Leach era couldn't, and that's take down the Huskies and take down the Huskies consistently.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I find the Huskies basketball program kind of amusing, really, considering they have some notable names come out of the school and enter the NBA. But I mean, I can't forget about a single-digit winning Huskies team have Markelle Fultz go number 1 overall. The Huskies have this weird thing with their basketball program of having the talent, but not winning games, as certainly in the past 5 years. Right. And it's just baffling to me how a program like the Huskies can get all these great recruits in the basketball program, but just not get it done and not be in the Pac-12 conference championship conversation. But
and I think,
go ahead.
I was going to say, I think you're seeing it now because now they don't have the talent and they're playing horribly. Like I was listening to some local radio here back on the west side, kind of talking about it and just rattling off the stats that they lost in that game. They didn't. It was like 18 or 16-0 in fast break points. It
Which
was like
shocking for a WSU team.
Yeah, like free throws was like they didn't do anything for free throws. Then you look at the shooting, which WSU didn't even do that great. Like points in the paint was like outscored by like 20. When you lose by every single measure like that, that's just a bad team, And if you look at the stats, WSU offensively, they didn't shoot great. Like they weren't shooting great from three. They were shooting decent from the field, and they were still able to put up 77. Now a lot of that, obviously, free throws were big, 16 points from the line. But I think that just shows that for at least right now, for the rest of this season, hopefully it continues on, and I think it will, based on just the freshman impact that we've seen from this WSU team is that I think this is the team to be in Washington in this conference for the time being.
In this conference, yes,
yes, in this conference for sure. But I think they've taken over from UW. Hopefully, I don't know the minds of everybody, but as I don't want to say I don't know if I want to say premier because they're still not great, but they're I think they're better than UW obviously right now, and I think they're set up better for the future. I don't know what's going on with that UW program, so I think this was huge, and I don't expect many more. I don't expect many more losses from WSU in this rivalry in the future because I think Kyle Smith has this program, in the right direction. I don't know what Mike Hopkins is doing, to be honest.
Well, Kyle Smith is still undefeated against Washington, Oregon, and Idaho teams throughout his tenure here at WSU. He's beaten Oregon, Oregon State, Idaho State, UW, beaten Eastern Washington, Seattle U. I mean, Kyle Smith is the king of the Pacific Northwest for the time being right now.
Out of the ones they've played and will play.
Yes, out of the ones we've played. If we play those folks up in Spokane, it could be a completely different story.
Yeah, absolutely.
But we'll progress into our next topic here with the win that we had on Sunday. It definitely has some cons to it, right? I mean, the starters combined for 70 points. And those 70 points came from 4 players. Well, there's a starting lineup consists of 5 players. Well, Andrej Jakimovski is that 5th player on that starting lineup who scored 0 points. And this is now the 3rd game in the past 4 where Jakimovski has had 0 points. In fact, he has 2 points in the past 4 games combined, and he is shooting, I think, 1 for 16. We got to talk about Jakimovski at least a little bit. But what are your thoughts on him as of late? Like, why is it not working for this 4-star recruit?
I mean, I think it just comes down to he's having a freshman moment. A freshman's having a freshman moment, This is by far the weirdest year to be any sort of college basketball player, let alone a freshman from North Macedonia, that's coming all the way over here. And so, obviously, it's not as concerning because they did just win, and we've seen other players pick up the slack. But, I mean, I think you have these moments. I think these guys, any freshman go through those moments. We've seen, some Abagidi games that weren't the greatest. We've seen guys struggle, and, Jakimovski has been really consistent all year in just doing what he has to do. And, just the fact is the threes haven't been falling lately, and I don't think that's because he can't make threes. I think he's shown that he has that ability. I don't know what necessarily is going on. We have no idea with the access that we have this year. But the fact that he's still out there, he's still playing, albeit he did get only 18 minutes in that UW game, and he didn't have a great game. But I don't expect him to be, kicked to the bench and not playing anymore, because I still think, Kyle Smith believes in him. But, it may take him some time to kind of fully adjust to the system. But, I think he's a volume guy. A lot of his best 3-point shooting games has been when he's been able to shoot a lot. You don't see a lot of 2-for-2s. I think he does need a lot of shots. And when the offense is kind of, going through other people, then, he's not going to get those shots. So, if this continues through the rest of the season, if we don't see him, figure it out at some point, then I think there's cause for concern. But right now, I would just chalk it up to a freshman having a freshman moment and see if it persists. But, I do believe that he is much better than what he has shown the past few games.
I don't disagree that he's a better player than what he has shown. I mean, he wouldn't be here if he wasn't a great player. He wouldn't be a top 5 WC recruit of all time, something like that, right? He wouldn't be here if he wasn't a good player. I definitely don't disagree with you there. But I do, however, think it's time to have a temporary change in what we're doing in terms of the rotation. I think Jakimovski, obviously, like I said, is a good player. He's a good shooter. I'll defend him at least one more time. He's taking good shots. He's not, chucking up half-court Steph Curry looking threes, and he's not, taking MJ fadeaways from mid-range. He's taking good open shots, as open as you can get in the Pac-12, right? But I think it's time for him to spend at least a couple of games on the bench. And by the bench, I mean, obviously that 6-man role. I think now that DJ Rodman is healthy, you can swap these two out and have DJ Rodman start for a couple of games. Keep in mind, DJ Rodman had a good chunk of games before his injury, and he was doing well at that 3 spot, 4 spot. I know they kind of switch in and out from there because Jakimovski and Rodman started at the same time. But Rodman's back. He's looking at least semi-decent. I believe he scored this week, and he had 1 3, I want to say. But give Rodman some minutes in the starting lineup, because from one thing I saw on Sunday is, the starters put up 70 points. 4 of them had double-digit points. We already knew Bonton and Williams were going to put it together, but now Abogidi and Deshaun Jackson are obviously putting it together. Jakimovski, as of late, has not been scoring necessarily well. Now, on top of me saying that he is a good player, the bench scored 7 points on Sunday, and the bench has been playing very, they've been up and down throughout the entire season. It's either
Hmm.
been 5 or 7 points off the bench, or it could be 16 points off the bench. And you notice those games where they have more scoring than not, it's because Bonton's not playing. So if you have Jakimovski be that sixth man, I think he could elevate that bench while not regressing with the starting lineup too much to where Bonton, Williams, Abigidi, and Deshaun can all put it together. Because let's face it, the four of them can put up 50 points across the four of them easily. Now, getting that scoring from the bench, I mean, college basketball is not based off of who are your best two players, right? It's a whole ensemble, right? Gonzaga would not be the number one team in the country if they had, the next Michael Jordan and a bunch of other dudes. They have an ensemble of players that can all chip in on multiple different aspects of basketball. And I think WSU has the potential of having that ensemble of players chipping in all these different categories. Maybe not the bench big man position, but in terms of scoring, there are numerous players on this team that can score. There are numerous players who have had double-digit scoring performances. TJ Bamba, Jakimovski, obviously. Even Miles Fitzgerald-Warren had double-digit scoring performance. This team is deep, but to make it, deeper in the next coming games, try it out. You want to keep the momentum going as much as you can, especially about to go on the road to face Oregon. But give it a shot. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I agree in some points to that. I think that shaking it up is not the worst thing for the team. If it can ignite something. But the one thing I want to make sure is that I still want, like, Jakimovski still needs to get his minutes and his time. If making him the sixth man coming off the bench, takes him out of the starting lineup, I still want to see him getting nearly the same amount of minutes because,
Sure.
I think he needs that, and so, I still want him to be able to get up his shots and do that. And my only concern about him going to the bench and kind of is having maybe to lead that bench unit because, obviously I think a big reason why the bench struggles a lot is because there isn't a primary kind of creator, other than Bonton and Williams. There's not a lot of guys that really can create on this team. So, if putting him to the bench is what he needs to kind of, get his stuff back together and figure it out, yes. But I still think he needs those minutes because, this is a young team and guys are going to struggle, but it's important to stick with them. And I know you're not saying, stop playing him. Obviously, we both know that's not the solution, but, I do think that if inserting Rodman into the starting lineup is what's best for the team, then absolutely do that. Another guy I think could be interesting is Kuntz. He's struggled since he's come back, but he was a guy at the start of the year that looked really good in kind of, him and kind of the four now obviously would be the three now that they've gone with the two bigs. So, that's a guy who I think is really similar to Jakimovski, obviously in terms of build and what he can do, and kind of the defensive length and stuff. So, if they start, maybe if he's starting to come back and get a little better, I'm not a big fan of his like Joel Embiid pump fake that he does. Not my favorite move. But yeah, I think with those three, Kuntz, Jakimovski, and Rodman, then kind of just ride the hot hand. Whoever's playing the best, have them in there for this team. But I don't want to see, we've seen it with some players that have got, Kuntz and Tony Miller that have got injured. And obviously the injury is a big deal, but, have kind of lost out on some minutes. And I just don't want to see that happen to Jakimovski because, he has a ton of potential. So, I definitely am not opposed to, switching things up because maybe that's what he needs. Maybe if he's working with that second unit, he can get more shots. And then, boom, that's the solution. But we'll see. But I'm certain that Kyle Smith is, working just as hard to figure it out and will do the right thing. And, I hope that we can see Jakimovski get back to, what he looked like against Stanford and, cannon some threes.
You guys can read more about my column about Andrej Jakimovski and his struggles as of late and what I think the WSU team should do in response to that. So you can read more about that at All Sports Pac-12 or just Sports Pac-12. Sorry about that. But, it's all about just making sure that everyone on the team's got confidence. It's all about that. Even it comes down even to the very bottom of the roster with Markovetsky having confidence, right? Everyone's got to have confidence on this team in order to get a winning streak going and not another losing streak, so to speak. But speaking of the future for this team, we have to talk about the upcoming road game. I mean, the Cougs are already in Eugene right now, prepping for their game tonight at 8 o'clock, which will air on FS1. And the Cougs are going to play the Ducks tonight. They'll play the Beavers on Saturday. We got to at least talk about the Ducks. Beavers I'm not entirely concerned about, but the Ducks, this is interesting because the Ducks have not played in a couple weeks here. This is going to be their first game in a little bit of time.
I think they just came back and played Oregon State last week. I was just looking at it.
They played it.
Oh yeah, that was a while ago.
Yeah, it was a couple of games ago. So Oregon's played, I want to say, once in the past almost 30 days.
Yeah, they had three postponed. They played one, and they had 3 more postponed. Wow, that sucks.
Yeah, yeah. So they're kind of having a hiccup in their season right now, obviously.
Yeah.
And Kyle Smith kind of talked about this in his press conference, saying that playing a team that hasn't been, in the rhythm of playing games consistently can almost give the Cougs an advantage in a way, considering that they don't have the gears turned to play the Cougs on Thursday. Now, I think it'll still be a tough game because the Ducks were formerly ranked, but the Ducks are a very interesting team. They have a similar roster to last year, but not entirely. Obviously, they don't have Peyton Pritchard anymore. He's in the NBA. They still have Chris Darte, and they have a transfer from Rutgers who's killing it as well. I cannot pronounce his last name to save my life, but
I know this one.
Yeah,
it's. Give me a sec. No,
it's something I cannot pronounce. I mean, I was struggling last week with UW's with the UW player Sahonis. It starts with a T. Yeah, I think that's how you pronounce it. But needless to say, the Ducks obviously still have a good team. They wouldn't have been ranked earlier in the season if they didn't. But what do you think about this Ducks team at least heading in? What do you think of a road game for the first time in the Kyle Smith era in Eugene?
Well, first off, I think that the Ducks have the worst basketball court in the whole world. It looked like somebody
I would agree with
pooped
that.
all over their court. So the fact that I'll have to look at that and the players will have to play on that is by far the worst part. But in terms of what's going to be happening on that ugly court, this Oregon team definitely is interesting because of kind of what you brought up, is that this is a team that was really good at points, and then they've had seemingly every game canceled. And the only game they've played in that loss to Oregon State, who, it isn't all that great either. So, this is really just a huge mixed bag of what could happen, because Oregon could come out and play like Oregon, or they could, play like a team that has had 6 of their last 7 games postponed. We have no idea. But, I think Oregon's going to come out and play like they should and like they can. I'm not going to expect necessarily a down game from them. So I think this comes down to what WSU can do, because up until UW, who is terrible, they were playing really bad. And if they play like that, they're going to get run out of the building. It's just as simple as that. This Oregon team is better and more talented than them. And so if they don't play at their best or near their best, they're just not going to be able to compete. So I think that's going to be the big thing. Hopefully that UW game kind of, gave them a spark, helped them figure some stuff out. And then if that's the case, then they obviously can compete. They showed that they can compete early in the season with, basically anybody, and this Oregon team is no longer near the top. So, I think it definitely plays in their advantage that this Oregon team hasn't played, and hopefully they have some rust. Hopefully, they look off. But, I mean, at the end of the day, that's a talented team. And, we've seen both teams play well. We've seen both teams play bad. So, I'm just going to focus on WSU. And if WSU doesn't play their best game, there's no way they're winning this.
I want to say about Oregon that they were formerly ranked on the AP poll. However, I do not think that they're the best team in the conference. I just want to say that up front. No. I think, to be honest, if I could really, break down every single team in the conference that are among the top, I probably like Colorado the most, probably because we saw them 2 times, take care of WSU easily.
Yeah.
But I like Colorado a lot, and I think they should be more in the conversation instead of Oregon. But Oregon, they got the name to kind of back them up, and you say Oregon and someone knows what you're talking about, and they're going to think about football. But in terms of basketball, yes, I hate that court. I really do. I'm not going to like looking at that tonight. But it is an awfully late tip-off time at 8 o'clock is just nuts to me. But I don't see the Cougs faring too well against Oregon. It's going to come down to defense. They had a good defensive performance against the Huskies, but at the beginning of the year, we were talking about defense. The Cougs just know how to defend the opponents, but it's going to come down to that in this game. And Oregon, an offensive-minded team for the most part, it's not going to be entirely pretty. I wouldn't be shocked if it was a loss. I'd be a little shocked if it was a win. But I was more shocked last year when the Cougs took down the number 8 Ducks at the time. But the Pacific Northwest streak for Kyle Smith may come to an end tonight against the Ducks. But we could talk a little bit about the Beavers. This is the second team that they'll be seeing for the second time, aside from Colorado. So they played Oregon State early in the season, or the game 3. I want to say
it was
game
3 or 4, somewhere in that. Yeah.
Very, very, very early in the season. It was a nail biter to the finish. It was a win in Beasley. They're now going to Corvallis for the first time in the Kyle Smith era. And this is, arguably a more interesting game to me because there are 2 different teams, right? The Cougs went off to a very hot start with 8 straight wins, right? And the Oregon State Beavers did not have too hot of a start, but they've been playing well as of late. So that's going to be more of an interesting game, if you ask me. I think the Cougars going on the road to Corvallis is going to be competitive. That might be a single-digit fare of multiple lead changes here and there. Bonton is likely going to have a big game, and probably both games against the Ducks and the Beavers. He's going to have a good game regardless. But a lot of the attention is going to be put towards that third spot again. Williams, Bonton, they can put up points. They can put up 25, 30 points combined, but Deshaun and F.A. have been, especially Deshaun's been turned up as of late offensively. F.A. had a good game, but they got to chip in. And we just talked about it, but Jakimovski, at least, get a bucket. Yeah. I'm not even asking for 8 point, 10 point game.
Make a three.
Make a 3. Make an open 3 quarter at top of the key, whatever you want. Make an open 3. Let's get everybody rolling here. Let's have only the bench have to figure their stuff out, right? let's have all the starters play well, and we can figure it out along the way. I hope TJ Bamba plays this game. He missed the last game with a toothache, which was something I've never heard of before. But apparently it was so bad that he couldn't even practice. But I hope to see Bamba in both these games. I'm thinking a 1-1 spread for this week. The loss, of course, coming from the Ducks. But I see maybe a single-digit win over the Beavers. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely like WSU in that Oregon State game because if you look at kind of the way the teams match up, I think they match up favorably for WSU because if you look at Oregon State, that's basically Ethan Thompson and the others, some shooters, some big guys. And the one thing we know about this WSU team is if you're guard, unless he's McKinley Wright, really,
or Campbell,
or just everybody on UCLA, but they can lock down a guard that can score. I don't think Oregon State really has that interior presence because that's been the thing on those other games. Colorado and UCLA are deep teams. They can score inside and then open it up for some outside. But Oregon State goes a lot through Ethan Thompson, and I think Noah Williams can win that matchup. I am expecting a win just because I think WSU is a better Oregon State. But I don't know what it is, but I feel a little optimistic. I'm going to go 2-0. If Oregon State had played all of their last 7, if Oregon had played all of their last 7 games and they were playing well, I would not pick WSU. But something about it. We've seen the way that we've seen firsthand, very unfortunately, the way that postponements and cancellations can affect a team in the WSU football season. So, I could see that happening with Oregon. I could see WSU carrying over what they did last game and carrying on that momentum. And I do expect a high-scoring game and, hopefully a lot of offense. But, I'm going to go 2-0. Sometimes I can be a bit pessimistic when it comes to basketball, but I don't know. Maybe I'm riding high off that Apple Cup win. But I'm feeling good about this week. I think one win is for sure guaranteed. I think that Oregon State game, they can lock it down. But maybe we'll see. Maybe we'll see a little shock tonight on FS1 national audience. Why not?
Well, one thing I'll be sure of is that the FS1 broadcast is going to be nothing like a Pac-12 broadcast in terms of they're going to be extremely bare bones with what they're talking about. Not looking forward to that. But that is all the time we have for today's episode, I should say. You can catch the Cougs tonight at 8 o'clock on FS1.
On the diarrhea court.
Yeah, on the atrocious Oregon court. But that's all the time we have here for today. You can find our written content exclusively on Sports Pac-12, and you can follow them on Twitter at Sports Pac-12. You can find links to that written content on our website, dashsports.tv, and make sure to follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok at DashSportsTV. Lastly, subscribe to our YouTube channel, Dash Sports, where you can find all of our shows and clips. Thank you for tuning in. You can catch us at the same time next week, 1 o'clock on Thursdays, 1 o'clock Pacific time. As always, go Cougs.